A good story well told is one of the great pleasures in life.
The experience of being around books and getting to read was always a refuge for me and a delight.
For me, to work as an artist is to ask questions. If you know what you're doing, don't do it.
Whenever I have an easy day of work, I know that I've been slacking off.
Journalism should be the glue that holds us all together and gives us opportunity to understand one another.
I come from a family of talkers. I have clear memories of many individual conversations at the dinner table about books that they were reading when I was a kid.
My favorite book from childhood, and I have it here, and I still smile when I hold it, Bright April. For the first time, I saw myself in a book. And we always talk about books being windows to the world and other things, but they also should be mirrors. I love this book because it was me.
First thing that comes to my brain is reading an excerpt from Invisible Man in 7th grade. I remember just being 10 or 11 and thinking, oh, you can be a weird black guy and write.
I grew up in Texas in a rather small town. We didn't have theater, we didn't have art museums. Then I saw the work of George Balanchine in the New York City Ballet, and I liked that very much. I was 12 years old and my mother was speaking on the phone and she said, I don't know what Bob's doing, but he's got a lot of projects.
My mother, she introduced me early on, not just to books, but what was going on in the communities where we lived. She was a postmistress. She would come home with these wonderful stories about people. She would share with me their lives, and that, I think, began to frame for me the idea that I'd like to be a journalist and tell stories.
The thing that would always draw me back to reading was being immersed. I remember reading one book, and I read it all night, even though it was 3 or 4 in the morning. I closed the book and I felt like, wow. And then I wanted another.
I decided pretty early on that I wanted to be a writer. My English teacher assigned us to write a short story, and I wrote a short story about Sherlock Holmes meeting Captain Nemo from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And that sort of opened this whole door to me, like, wait, you can do that?
I think I was a little afraid of writing. I was afraid that I couldn't do it well. And then I wrote a piece for the Los Angeles Times, and it kind of flowed out of me. And my newspaper friends were stunned. They said, you can write. And that gave me the courage to start writing books.
I guess my biggest sort of moment when I realized I was a writer was when I wrote my first book and everyone hated it because it actually, frankly, was terrible. So I just had to start over. But I really had no choice because nothing else would fulfill me in a way that writing did and does.
You're gonna find this hard to believe. I love to write on airplanes.
I work really well on airplanes.
Put on my headset,
If I put headphones on
get into my zone.
and I'm reasonably comfortable,
I wrap myself in, and then I can just write and concentrate.
I can work for 6-7 hours on a nice long flight and get so much done.
I like working at home. I can take a nap, I can weep, take another nap, write a page.
I've always worked on many things at one time. I'm working on a book, I'm working on a film, I'm working on art installation.
Actually, I'm an accidental librarian. I was always comfortable around libraries and in libraries. Being the first woman to be Librarian of Congress was very significant, and being the first African American was very significant for me personally. People can be from any background and do anything. The little girl who used to have pigtails, now the Librarian of Congress.
I'm creating what I call a library of inspiration. I come here and work because it's a natural environment. It's a place where people work collectively, write operas and plays together. And I always say that we have to do what no one else is doing. I think it's really important that we live with some awareness of what man did in the past. One of the few things that will remain of our time, 5,000 years from today, will be art. So artists are the records and the journals, the diaries of our time. And if we don't support art, we don't have it.
I went to Normandy for the 40th anniversary of D-Day, and I met 2 men who had survived it and then survived the war. And they were so vivid in their descriptions, and it was such a life-changing experience for them, that I began to collect these stories that engaged me in the idea of writing books. I like the idea of finding a topic, working your way through it, the permanence of what was on the page, challenging yourself intellectually.
I've had so many people talk about the library as refuge. And some of the kids and the people who tell me about this were quirky or they were different. And the library was a place that embraced being special. The book that's become my favorite is The Rainbow Fish. I started reading it with a group of children who were deaf, and to see the sparkle in their eyes. And then we gave the book to each child afterwards, and one child just hugged the book. And that's when you know there's magic.
I guess when I'm asked why a library is important, I think, why do we need air to breathe?
I was taken to libraries from the earliest time that I can remember. My father was committed to getting hold of the newest books the minute they became available. We would do this thing he called making library rounds, where we would hit as many possible branches as we could within a certain vicinity.
It's hard to overstate the importance of the Carnegie gift. The Carnegie libraries across America really were connective tissue for this society.
When I first came to New York in the early 60s, I did performances on the steps of the New York Public Library, so it became a backdrop and a stage.
There's a kind of sacred place, and these are the guardian animals. Our voices suddenly get very hushed, and our footsteps are echoing on these stone floors, and there's all this mysterious adult intellectual activity taking place all around me.
The rest of New York is just all hustle bustle. Sirens going off and horns honking, and you're trying to beat the light. You go to the library, and it's a sanctuary, and then you are humbled by what you're surrounded by. All that great work that people have done over the centuries. It's an institution that we ought not to lose sight of.